Kevin Samuels, like y'all said, talk about ABBA and like some of these other people, like they do good work, but Kevin Samuels walked out on the limb where no one else wanted to go. I watch all sorts of content, and I can tell because I'm a media guy.
Yeah,
I can tell when guys are like, "Ooh, I want to stay in the safe zone."
Yes.
I will even group myself in that. I'm a borderline guy myself, but I can tell when somebody walks farther than me on the limb. He was all the way out there on the limb.
We ain't nobody. We ain't nobody. We ain't nobody. We ain't nobody. Nah, we ain't nobody. We ain't nobody.
All right. So. Here we are, episode 2. Nobody Knows podcast.
We're here.
We done multiplied, as you can see. We got a couple of guests here with us today that we're really ecstatic to have. Our first guest, actually. So, it's gonna be a party. You know how we do.
Yes, sir.
Alexander B.
Oh, you already introducing yourself. My man said
we in the building.
the guests need no introduction, but we will introduce them. You know what I'm saying? But to my left, I have
Steez and Gang, Steez in general,
all that.
Steez in general,
Much in.
Steez in affiliates.
Oh wow!
You know what I mean?
My man hasn't even said his name yet. That's
You know
crazy.
what I mean? So I go by E-Man.
You already know.
Emmanuel. Steez in general works.
Yes, indeed.
Yeah.
Professor X.
He said, "Hey,
You already know.
What's up? That's me. Ladies and gentlemen, Alex B. the Curious George. You know.
Whoa. Slow down.
Professor X, I'm Nito."
I know. I just wanted to say that.
Oh, okay. I see what you
I
trying
ain't
to
gonna-
stir things
I
up.
just wanted to say
Okay.
Professor X. It just sounded cool at the moment. Ad libs. I go by wins. You already know that. The W is silent.
Just think about that for a second.
Don't worry about
And
it.
yeah, I'm Spencer.
was
Spencer Bolio.
terrible.
Cut you off there.
Nah, you good.
We're good.
That
We're
was
good.
Alex.
Yeah, you're welcome.
He's trying to match my frequency right now. On the bass.
Energy. Yes,
Yeah, I feel you vibrating.
I know.
I don't know
like,
how
Yeah,
to.
bro. I'm not even moving. That's crazy.
Yeah, Eric Bellinger. There's a song I think it's called "Frequency." It's a hit. Just reminded me of that.
My man's about to go to the
Let's
website.
circle back.
You making a Snapchat video after this one?
Nah, I'm retired.
But we are here today to touch on some pretty interesting news that most people probably know at some level if you are familiar with the manosphere or red pill, blue pill, sigma, beta, alpha, theta, all that space. Kevin Samuels passed away. When this episode actually comes out, so obviously will be news that is known, of course, but we wanted to kind of touch on some of the things that he shifted as it pertained to the conversation of just male-female interaction, relationship, marriage, all these different things that he stirred up Black community as well with his approach to these subjects in the YouTube space. He blew up because there was a video where he addressed a Black woman that was seeking to be married, had very unrealistic expectations. I don't really care what anybody says about that. That's just the reality. So they had a very good conversation that blew up because there was some varying opinions and outrage at the way that he addressed said woman, even though she answered the questions he asked. But you can always go look up the average at best video. That's the video that blew him up. It was like a 7-minute clip of an actually 20-minute conversation, so most people don't actually even know the full conversation. But we kind of want to start with each individual here has had a very different experience, obviously, when we came across Kevin Samuels' content. So we want to start there. We'll start with Stays over here. What was your experience with Kevin Samuels, or what are some things that he impacted in your life specifically?
Yeah, that's a good place to start. He really shifted how I view life in and of itself. So, I mean, I won't go too deep into that today, but so basically over the last, I'd say over the last 4 years, I've been deliberately trying to shift the way I view relationships in general. And so, over the last 4 or 5 years, some things had happened that had made me a little bit bitter, I think, towards women in general, which, we know men and women that are bitter towards the opposite sex. And I think a lot of people talk about it in a way that makes you think that it's okay. I actually noticed it was unhealthy at some point, but you can't just like snap your fingers and have the bitterness disappear, right?
Facts. Yeah.
So I was in the middle of overcoming that, and I think at one point I thought I had overcame it, but I wasn't all the way there. But I had reached a point where I was actually not anti-marriage, but I was just like, I'm not getting married personally. And even if you don't believe in that institution, and you just, you know what I mean? Like maybe you're all about family, but you don't really, believe in the government being involved in your family. I get all that. But for me, I was just like, yeah, I'm not even trying to do all that. I'm going to just be a bachelor for the rest of my life type thing. Started listening to his content and, it just kind of shifted how I viewed that. He actually, if you know what he did, he actually called out men for years first.
Yeah, that's where he started.
So where I started listening to his content, the content that I saw was men-centric, and he was like holding men accountable. So I actually had a hard time listening to his content. I would shut it off because he was coming after me and what I was doing. He actually was like, we was calling dudes out. There was just things that I was not doing. But I kept going back to listen to it because even if I disagree with something, if you have something potent to say, I will circle back. Eventually, I started taking some of his advice and actually actively working on myself, working on my deficiencies. And so he made me a better man. And then he also, he allowed me to see beyond the bitterness. So I'm no longer bitter. I can definitely attribute some of that to Kevin Samuels for sure. So,
Dope.
What do you think's the biggest factor in him, like his content specifically, getting you past like bitterness specifically?
So that's a good question. That's a great question. For me, it was when you're bitter towards the opposite sex, usually you're not actually taking accountability for your actions.
That's good.
So if you're in a relationship,
Yeah.
it didn't work out. It's easy, especially if friends that care about you. It's easy for them to be like, "Oh, screw her." Or screw him,
Point the
right?
finger.
You're the one for you is gonna come along, right? But then after a while, you notice a cycle where the same thing keeps happening to you.
You are the common denominator.
It's easy, exactly. It's easy to still believe that the problem is outside of yourself. Kevin was showing dudes the problem might be you, and you won't know until you fix your deficiencies. And he was very specific about those deficiencies. Like, do you work enough? Are your people skills there? You know what I mean? What is your end goal? What do you want out of life? Do you know what life's about? So, like, he was going in, right? Are you lazy, right? All of these things, And so when you looked at all those things, if you were deficient in any of those areas, how do you know that the relationship you had may not have worked out if you weren't deficient, right? So he really he basically held a mirror up. You know what I mean? So for me, after you start working on these things, the bitterness starts to evaporate because you realize it was you. It's not outside of you, it was you. You know what I mean? So that's kind of, to answer your question, that's kind of what I would say that the content did specifically. Yeah.
What about you, Spence? What would you say was your, your initial reaction and like some things that you were able to actually take away from Kevin Samuels' content?
Yeah. I think I found him from the Roommates podcast, probably. So they had him on there. And, dope podcast.
To this day, though, when Hafiz tried to beat him, that was terrible.
That was not a win.
Address that. All right.
No. If he ever sees this, then just know.
No, we rock with you, Hafiz, but that was wild. You know it too.
Yeah, no, for me, like, it more woke me up to how much of a problem there is because I haven't really been in like the dating scene a lot,
Right.
Or like in the types of environment. I mean, you look at like the red pill community at large and everything. There's one side of it that focuses a little bit more on the Miami girl type culture, like all
The extreme side, for sure.
Yeah, yeah, and that's the most like just purely entertaining side. So like the algorithms push that, and I probably saw that.
Right.
And so it more like woke me up to like how many issues there are in those types of relationships. But like, I think for me, like one thing it's helped me with in terms of being positive, it's probably confidence, like knowing the confidence that you project and the different ways, I guess, to have confidence. Like you talk about like what it means to be a high value man and all of that. And it's either serious or it's a joke, depending on who you ask.
Right.
That is a concept. But for me, it's more of like taking an honest look at your life, like I absorbed this, taking an honest look at your life, seeing are there things that I'm actively working on in my life that add value to other people and that are purposeful and like are going to improve the lives of other people. And if the answer to that is yes, then it's like, okay, like that's a purpose. I can grind on that. And then that's the type of thing that the right woman would appreciate in me and respect me for. But if it's like, if I'm on a grind that like a certain girl doesn't care about, then it's like, okay, well they really aren't for you. But the problem is if you're not on any of those grinds, haven't figured out like what's purposeful a point of your life, you're not grinding and you're like, no woman is interested in me. I think that's an issue.
Not having purpose at all.
Right, exactly. But if you have a purpose, so I think he really helped reinforce that type of concept in my head.
Oh man,
That's dope. That was good.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
That was really well said. What about you, Alex? What would you say is the main, one of the main things, I guess, that impacted you as far as his content that you're able to take away and apply life-wise, or you've been working to apply, I guess?
Well, there was a time that it was similar with Emmanuel that I was going through, like, I probably won't get married kind of thing, where I was even, like, considering having, like multiple wives or something. That's a joke. Guys, don't take that too serious, okay?
He thought about it.
I did. But obviously polygamy doesn't work long term. That's just my belief. And he reinstilled the fact that, just because one car breaks down doesn't mean that you stop driving.
Oh man, yeah. That was different when he did that.
So, and he says that so many times. It's like you see cars break down all the time, yet you still continue to drive. So different. Like, why do you see marriage why don't you see marriage the same way? It's like just because you see one not work, why do you think that it's not going to work for you? So it's just that simple concept. Just because something may seem broken, yet you've never experienced it, you think yours is going to be broken. So, and because they, people are sensitive to this area, right? Like they don't want to get hurt, including myself. So you don't want to put yourself in a situation of hurt because you felt it before, and you feel like it's that part of fight or flight, right? Either you're gonna run from that hurt, or you're gonna choose to build, and that choice really has to be a strong one because. Like I also just talked to you not too long ago, right before we did this podcast, is that both parties, if you want to be in a monogamous, serious relationship, they have to decide whether you want to be casual for the rest of your life or you want to build something lasting. Like you really do got to choose. You have to choose that every day. So, but what are you going to be in the freaking middle? Because that's not fulfilling. Like I was telling you, that's not a fulfilling life. To be in the freaking middle, in between, an in-betweener forever. Yeah. So
you might as well just stay in your lane at that point.
And
be in the middle,
and not reap the fruits of your labor. Like, so he comes from a very spiritual aspect, which is what I love because I don't think people acknowledge how spiritual inclined he is and what he brings to the table on his episodes. So I'm tapping into those things. Like he may come off as like more highly assertive, but I didn't look at it like that. He's a father figure for lots of men. Huge father figure, huge authority figure.
That's why they call him the Godfather.
Absolutely. Bro, undisputed Godfather. Like when have you ever seen him lose an actual argument? Because he's so studied. He argues himself before he argues anybody. So that's deep. And he's so well researched. So I mean, I have the utmost highest respects from the outside culture of Black community, because even though I know he geared towards fixing the group of the Black community, mostly he influenced me, because nobody from my culture is doing it, speaking upon it the way that he is,
right,
and the way that he has. So it's touched me in that way. So I'm very grateful till this day.
That's dope.
Wow.
I think, I think for me, I had an interesting experience when I first heard his content because I think at a level, I always knew there was issues between but I think the way that he articulated those issues with research, I think it hit me differently, you know, because I think I'm one of those people that had a issue from when I was young, being like super sensitive to then becoming not super sensitive, overly sarcastic, you know, defense mechanism to coming to this middle ground of like assertiveness, but aware of people's feelings, but not letting those feelings dictate the reality and the truth. And I think that was something that he did very well. Your feelings, they're valid, but they still do not necessarily dictate the reality of what the situation is, you know? Even in that clip that went viral, the average at best clip, a lot of women tripped on that clip because he had her, there's a rating involved, but he asked her to rate herself, you know?
Yeah, and he did that every time, so they knew what they were getting into.
To be honest with you. He's asking you essentially to be honest with yourself.
Yeah.
You know, and I think that if you ever listen to the content where he was actually going at men, like he was very, very hard on them. Because it was like, you have to be able to look at yourself. Like, you have to. That is a must. And I think that was one of the biggest things, because that was a big journey I was on. So I think like him highlighting that within not just men, but within women, and then the connection between that and the relationship between that. You saw how, because even though the internet's not the majority, right? Majority of women actually appreciate what he has to say, but you're going to see the internet more than you're going to see the behind the scenes, you know, the reality, right? So, you got all, you know, all that. Oh, he's misogynistic and blah blah. But what I loved about him is that he kept going, and I think that's something that we've talked about even with knwbdy, right? It's like, I don't really, and sometimes Spence is a good buffer, because making sure that I'm usually not too far over, but
not too.
It's just like I care, but at the same time, it's like things have to be said, you know, and people are going to, the truth, even if your intent is not to offend, will offend. And I think that's what he showed, that he's like, even though I'm trying to help, I'm not a perfect human being. People like looked at him as if he was supposed to be some perfect human being.
Yeah.
And that was weird to me. Like,
yeah, it's like personally he had a lot of flaws. Like, he wasn't able to find probably like the marriage that he wanted initially. Like, and that was part of the learning experience for him.
And he would address that. He addressed that in his own content. He was like, look, because people try to be like, oh, well, you're divorced. And he's like, well, duh. Like, so if I didn't successfully do marriage, then I probably know why it wasn't successful, you know?
You know, he also, just to like the theme that we've kind of been talking about, if you actually listen to him, right, which most people who had bad things to say about him didn't really listen to the full-length content, right? Because we live in a clickbait culture.
100%.
He would put out 3-hour live streams
3 hours
2 or 3 times a week. Like, you probably weren't watching them, but he was very clear. He honestly said, I honestly think my marriages didn't work out because I wasn't good enough. He literally said that. So it's kind of strange because, like, if you watch his evolution, it's insane. Like, you know, you don't actually see most people evolve like that right in front of your face. And he did that. And so he understood, like, 2 things. He understood marriage is usually a younger people's game for the most part, right? And then 2, if he was a better man, he probably would still be married. He acknowledged those things. Right. So I thought that was powerful. I was like, okay.
I thought it was really dope that I respected the fact that he was introspective. And even though that, like I said, there are certain points that he would make that, like the majority of the stuff that he said, I agree with. There were certain points I didn't necessarily drive with 100%. But to me, it's like, if what you're saying is like 70% reality, then it's like, that's way above average. And most people are even afraid to do that.
Yeah.
Without and receive the backlash. Like,
I mean,
nobody was doing what he was doing.
You know what's crazy is it's so interesting to me because, like, if you know, and we're gonna stay positive on here, but there was a lot of people that had negative things to say.
Oh, for sure.
But it's interesting to me because he identified a problem. No, if you look at the statistics, you know, there's a problem, right? Between men and women in general, or we can even talk about the black community.
Both ways,
problem. He was actively trying to do something about it, right? And so the people who were critiquing him, it was very interesting because, like, he would actually ask them, okay, maybe I'm wrong. What are you trying to do about the problem? And it was crickets every single time. Not one person that I saw had critique had an idea of what to do instead. And I thought it was very interesting to me. It's very interesting to me that people who do not care enough to put themselves on the line to solve the actual problem had the most to say.
Yeah.
Now, if you were trying to solve the problem and had something to say, I actually noticed he respected that a little bit more. Because it's all about the work at the end of the day. I think feelings are important and are valid, like Vaughn said, but there's work that needs to be done. So if you ask me, what I really respected is that he really made an effort to fix a problem. If you didn't agree with his methods and all that, I think all that's fair.
Like you're supposed to have a perfect method, though.
But that's my point. My thing is, like, if you disagree,
Yeah.
that's fair to me. But it's very strange that in a sea of all these millions of people, he was one of the few people really, really trying to do something about it. He probably overworked himself to the point where he, whatever happened, So I thought that was interesting.
So to piggyback off of what E just said, and we can take turns on this topic, we'll just kind of, flow with one another. Why do you think that the hate that he received was so great while he was alive and after his passing on?
I mean, I'll let y'all take. I'll go last.
Start with Spence. Go ahead.
All right. Yeah.
Start that one off.
Well, I think number one, it's just the internet we live in, like YouTube algorithms and all of that stuff. Because, you saw it with, I'm just gonna name drop with the Fresh and Fit podcast. They know what does well algorithmically. They also would have very, very long live streams where they would talk about all kinds of things, but the things that would pop up on the content that would pop up on your homepage would almost always be like kicking a woman off a show or something like that.
That's pretty much it, yeah.
And not gonna get into their intentions with that, but I think with Kevin Samuels, almost no matter what he did, if he called out women, they were gonna get clipped, and people, that was gonna blow up more. It just always was. And there's I don't know if there's a way for him to avoid that, So to his credit, I think the algorithm would just mess with it. But yeah, I'm not 100% on board with his methodology either. I've learned things from it, but I do think modeling how to have a good, respectful conversation in a relationship, he maybe could have done a better job with that. He got to the truth really well. But in terms of if the woman he was talking to that calls in, if he put himself in position of this is a girl that he'd potentially be interested in, how would he speak to them? Instead of a caller that was on the line. And I'm sure he cared about them too. It's just, I think it's a little different energy.
Yeah.
Not that you have to be flirting with them or something, but you know what I'm saying? It's modeling the energy you want people to have with people they might actually commit to in the future.
Right. I see.
Yeah.
For me, it was what do you call there's a soundboard? His soundboard.
Yo, he would press that joint
let's
at
be
the
real.
most ridiculous.
He had the most elite soundboard on the face
His
of the
soundboard
planet.
was funny.
Because the reason why I'm laughing, because while
I'm a
you were talking,
PhD.
I was thinking about it. Dude,
His
that
sound
was
was
probably what turned off some people. It was
for
he
sure.
would do the slap sound or all this stuff. Or if someone was overweight,
The
he had
Big
the
Shirley
sound
joint.
Big Shirley.
Like,
Honestly,
I
if
did not
you're-
know that.
Listen, dude, listen.
Yeah, he was wild.
On a humor level, it was funny. If you're the person
Facts.
he's making fun of,
Yeah.
I can understand why you would hate him for that.
The best way to deliver truth is through humor.
He
would try.
knowing.
Yeah.
See?
That's so true.
But what's crazy is after we reflect on this for some days, weeks, months, some of the people that hated what he did, he actually understood people very well.
Yeah, exceptionally.
If you take a step back, there are people on YouTube who wrote books that are extremely boring.
Yeah, they were in the same space
And
as
they're
him, too.
talking about the same things as Kevin Samuels, and no one
Robert
cares.
Greene.
Yeah.
He figured out, I have to make people feel something to get them to pay attention and to care.
Yes.
You understand?
Yes.
He understood that. You actually look at his content in the beginning, he wasn't doing all this stuff.
He really wasn't.
Understood, if I want to get a response out of a massive group of people, I got to know them better than they know themselves. So all this stuff that they said they hate was by design because he wanted you to pay attention. That's how much he cared about it. Right? And so when you take a step back and look at it from that point of view, it changes the way we view it. But anyways, I'll let y'all continue on why you think you got some hate. I was laughing because you were right about what you said. You know what I mean? You were right.
But yeah, Alex, go ahead, bro.
What you think?
Let's chime in on that.
Well, well, he always brings up like comedians like Patrice O'Neal, into play because Patrice was spitting some facts.
Ahead of his time, for sure.
Right. So
Comedy again, like you were saying.
yeah. So like comedy, exactly. So if you're gonna deliver truth, it's best to deliver it through comedy because it might go over somebody's head, but the ones that like be really trying to listen, it'll stick.
And it's hard to be
Yeah.
offended if it's a quote unquote joke.
Yeah. So like I can tell he's really passionate about it. And that's why he was adding layers to his medium and his platform to make you listen. So like he added these just layers to his tonalities, added layers to his delivery. Like he was on it. So, and people also, when you go up, naturally want to bring you down anyway. So his followers were rising and rising, subscribers were rising and rising. Laws of physics.
Detractors are coming regardless.
Yeah, something's gonna try and pull you down. Something doesn't want you to go up. So that has to happen. I understand that though, but I was always a fan, and Emmanuel was onto it earlier. He's like, dude, he's gonna blow up, bro. Like I was like, man, and when I started watching, I was like, yeah, it's
inevitable.
Yeah,
Yeah. I thought he already was when I first saw him.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was already doing well when I peeped it. It wasn't millions of views yet because they're like 3-hour-long conversations, but it was still like thousands, hundreds of thousands of views, and people knew that this was a problem. Like I see on TV all the time, like there's things to get people to make a choice and get married. Does it always end up long term? Sometimes it end up being broken. Who knows? But he understood that there's an issue here. There's less people getting married. There's less people having faith in something. So
I think the hate was inevitable for as well. But I think primarily because he was kind of peeling the Band-Aid off, right? He was peeling the Band-Aid off of these issues where people, and this is not to down people that have been divorced or single. It's not to down any of those situations, single parent situations or anything, because my mother herself was a single parent for a while. You know what I'm saying? So but I think he was pulling a Band-Aid off of a very obvious wound that nobody in this space would address, the why. You know what I'm saying? If you have a wound and you put a Band-Aid, there's a why. There's a core reason why your wound is your wound, and that's why you go to specialists to see the depth of a wound, right? Like, he was a specialist, That doesn't mean he was always 100% right and conclusive. Every single doctor is not 100%. If that was the case, then, yeah, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
There wouldn't be cancer. There wouldn't be all these things, right?
Yeah.
However, he was a specialist. And I think that the reason why he was able to do what he was able to do is because he was a specialist. And sometimes when you go to a specialist and they tell you, let's just say, this is easier. Let's just say someone does have cancer or they're overweight or whatever. When you go to the doctor, they typically say to you, okay, you need to eat better. Or you need to eat. That's for both. Like sometimes when you're cancerous and sometimes when you're overweight, right? They tell you the same. Like, you need to eat better. You don't look at your diet. Your diet could be affecting this. That's not to just be like, oh, lose weight. It's like there's an internal issue going on here that is causing outward effects and results. And I think people sometimes will leave those appointments, right? And because they're so used to their lifestyle or whatever the case may be, they don't take it as serious as the specialist takes it. So they don't do anything. Or they do it for a little bit, and they don't do it anymore. And then when the result happens, them passing away, like a heart attack, or their health's just really bad, or whatever it may be, then they're like, oh, well, it's on you. But most people don't want to say that it's on them, right? Mm-hmm. And I think that was the biggest thing that was bringing some of the hate, right? It was that I am addressing an issue as a specialist that's deep within you, whether it was your environment, like how you were raised, a situation you were hurt in, a relationship you were hurt in, a marriage that didn't work, whatever it was. Yeah. It's like you don't actually want to look at yourself. And because you don't want to look at yourself, you're going to look at me as the enemy. And that's easier for you. It's easier for you to point the finger at me than it is for you to point the finger at yourself.
Yeah, that's dope. I think I forgot if you said it or you said it, E, but like what you said about other people not really getting the hate because they didn't really have their own solutions they were proposing.
As yeah.
Yeah, I think that was the biggest thing. I know, like Hafiz mentioned that is like he was trying things.
Yeah.
And if you notice the people that are like generally respectable on YouTube that border like the manosphere community, like in Abba and Preach, or I mean other different content creators, you know, most of them they would voice their disagreements with Kevin Samuels, but for the most part, the people that were really trying, they respected him in a way, and I think that says something about him.
Even the people that would disagree, they had like, even the people that would disagree with like certain things, for the most part, would be like, this information he's bringing to the forefront, this research is accurate. This is not wrong.
Let's go. It goes even deeper.
Absolutely.
It goes even deeper,
Facts.
and I'm gonna go there. So let's think about it.
Let's take it this way, E, because we are brown folk, right? So let's segue with the hate thing into why do you think he received so much hate
Oh, actually, go ahead. Finish.
from the black community?
Well, it's gonna tie in
Before and after.
Let's go there. You know,
Before and after too.
Yeah, we said before.
Just did the camera just turn off?
No, I think it's probably recording still. I'll just check. You keep talking.
Okay.
The audio is important here. Still,
Oh yeah.
We had about 28 minutes, but
Oh, we're good.
Oh yeah, that's probably why.
28 or 30. But anyways, so I'm a basketball guy. We all like basketball, watch basketball. I play with some very good players. I myself am pretty all right, depending on who you ask. But when I say very good, I'm talking about people who like play professionally or had looks G League, ex NBA dudes. They're on a different level, right? And we all know. I've been in some games where I played with some dudes who are like college dudes. Some of these dudes D1, some of them not. At the end of the game, where you have money on the line, like sometimes I'll play pickup. We'll put money on the table, and the game gets very serious, right? At the end of the game, it's very interesting because you would think that all these dudes who are college players would want to take the last shot. You would assume that. Right?
Yeah.
When pressure actually hits, it's actually very surprising and interesting to see who is actually ready to shoot that shot. It's just a shot, man. But there's so many eyes watching and there's so much stuff on the table. So what ends up happening is usually there's someone who has the balls to do it or someone who has been putting in the work to do it. Now, if they miss the shot, obviously people are going to come at them and all this stuff, right?
Right.
But they had the audacity to not just shoot the shot, but be prepared to shoot the shot. That's what makes them special and different.
And live with the results.
Kevin Samuels, like y'all said, talk about ABBA and like some of these other people, like they do good work. But Kevin Samuels walked out on the limb where no one else wanted to go. I watch all sorts of content, and I can tell because I'm a media guy.
Yeah.
I can tell when guys are like, "Ooh, I want to stay in the safe zone."
Yes.
I'll even group myself in that. I'm a borderline guy myself, but I can tell when somebody walks farther than me on the limb. He was all the way out there on the limb. Mm-hmm. I'm very careful how I speak about people who are willing to walk further than me, personally. I'm very careful with my tongue when it comes to that, right? So the hate, if you want to really know where it comes from, is, like you said, you peel off the Band-Aid. But we know what's the most powerful weapon on earth? It's information. That's the most powerful weapon on earth. I learned in 2020, like I had like a political epiphany in 2019, and I was talking to people from both sides, Republican and Democrat, and I was telling them about themselves. When I tell you, I got the most visceral reactions out of people in my entire life during 2020 because I was telling them about themselves. Because when you tell someone about themselves, you're threatening the illusions that they think make them who they are.
Yeah.
If you threaten those illusions, those are the most precious things to people, their worldview, they will come for you. They'll do things, right? Like, and all this stuff ties in, or even relationships, because relationships are very important. If you come after the way I view relationships and I don't like it, I'm going to come after you. Mm-hmm. That's where it came from. That's like literally where it comes from. Even if he's right, if you do that, I will come for you.
It's like I must protect my foundation at all costs, even if it's not built the best.
What was crazy about him is he knew this and he was empathetic of this. Yeah, he made jokes and he was harsh to some people, whatever. But he knew this, and that's why he kept going. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? And Vaughn, I guess to your question, you said why specifically in our community?
Yeah, our community specifically. Before. I would almost say more so after, because we kind of get the makeup of the before hate, right?
Right.
But the after him not even being here, and the hate being what it was, specifically from.
You want to know why?
Yeah.
You want to know why the hate before and after? You want to know why? Comfort, man. We as a community, not everybody, are comfortable where we at in 2022. And then you had a dude come with a suit and glasses and turtlenecks and all this stuff and a soundboard. Yeah. And he tried to come and get you to get up out of your chair you comfortable in. Listen, man, I could go way back in the history books. There's people that have tried to get people to get up out of their chair, and those people died. That is where it comes from. You have the audacity to tell me to get up out of my comfort zone. You have the audacity to do that.
Who are you?
That's where the hate comes from. It's not even really hate, though. It's really not even hate, though, if you really think about it. And so when I see all these common people wishing death and all that stuff, I know that's not what they actually mean. It's just like, I'm comfortable, and you was trying to threaten my comfort zone. That's where it comes. Maybe y'all got a different perspective, but if you ask me, that's what I seen.
I think people that have the ability to be happy or jovial in any way that someone has passed, that genuinely, whether imperfectly or not, genuinely was trying to help them, that's a problem internally. Like you still don't want to look at yourself. And even in death, you'll point to someone else. That's crazy to me. Even in death, you'll be like, well, good riddance. It's like,
it's not so crazy though. Like y'all were just talking about
wild.
social media. If you think about it, like for example, like if you want to like look in the past, like the genocides of the past, things like that, you can't actually have genocide unless you dehumanize a group of people.
Yeah.
yeah.
You literally can't do it. Because we're all human, we know what it means to be human. If I'm thinking about how human you are, it is harder for me
to actually
follow through. Right? So we have a culture, an economy that is built off of not recognizing people as human beings. We literally have an economy built off that. And so it eventually leads to like a spiritual death of the country. Look at these mass shootings, all these things. People don't talk about this, but what that really is a spiritual death. So the reason why people are talking about him the way they're talking about him is because of that same spiritual death that has occurred. You have gone to the point where you have dehumanized people so much that when people pass, you don't think about their family or his daughter or the people that loved him and cared about him. You're like, yeah, good. But if somebody, the thing I know, the reason why I'm talking like this is because if something happened to them and they saw someone wishing death on their family, they wouldn't like it. And if you wouldn't like that, why are you doing that to somebody else?
Yeah, right? Man. It's sad.
You see what I'm saying?
It's sad, and I think, and I'll say this might be a little more stingy, but because I've definitely had some conversations with black women specifically that did not like him. And my position was always, okay, typically you don't like him. Typically what I would hear is that they didn't like him because of how he spoke to women. It was always usually the tone, and then him, kind of saying that women after a certain point were not as desirable, right? Now, while I can at a level be empathetic with someone saying that they didn't necessarily like how he spoke, I could see that all across the board. Like, that's okay, cool. I get that. For me, it's like the reality of what he was saying as it pertains to where a lot of this stuff stems from. Like when he would talk about the wedlock thing for the black community. Like that's we have a lot of single mothers and stuff like that because of the wedlock thing. Like it's a thing. Whether you want to acknowledge that or not, it's a thing. And it was interesting because some of the women that I would have these conversations with had children out of wedlock, or so it's like deep down, like your offense has to at some level be coming from a place of truth because this is a situation that you lived. Now, I understand why you might not disagree with the single mother situation, like being as desirable as, or whatever the case may be because of the womb situation. My mother was a single mother, and I didn't take offense to it. personally, and it's like I could have easily taken offense to that because my mother was a single mother, and she ended up getting remarried, and she's been married for like almost 30 years at this point, right? So again, there are exceptions to the rule always, but my mom also did the internal work. That's why I love my mother, and I can look at my mother and respect my mother because she did the internal work. So the only reason she became, in my view, I guess, an exception to the rule, right? Obviously, we have our own personal beliefs, right, as well, that fuel that fueled her change, but it's like her growth rather. It's like she grew, and because she grew, the type of woman that she was more desirable, right? And so there's an exception to the rule, but like I would say, I don't want to get too far into that, but long story short, it's like I think a lot of the offense was because he was really actually confronting some things that are actually really a problem, and you just don't want to take that accountability. My mother is a prime example of accountability, and I was able to see that, fortunately. So it's easy for me to see the opposite. And it's like a lot of y'all just don't want to take accountability. So in death, you will, ridicule the man that was trying to, even though not perfectly, it didn't feel the best to you, the way that you wanted him to do it. That's what he was trying to do.
No, I feel that. I think that's deep. Going back to what you said too, like in combination of what you're both saying, like this, like spiritual death type of situation in our country. Like I think that really has so many layers to it.
It really does, bro. It's deep, bro. It's deep.
Well, it's because being able to be in a society where it's encouraged for you to basically not just view your emotions as something that is true because you're feeling that, but view them as actually determining truth in general. I think what a lot of it comes down to, man, is like you were saying, you're having conversations with Republicans and Democrats, different people in 2020. It's like, I almost think some of the spiritual death is the dehumanization of going from, we used to be a society where at least the goal, even if people weren't doing it well, was to see people like as, there's like a divine sovereignty to the individual person, where like every individual person had infinite worth, Yeah. But then the more like tribal we get, and the more we see ourselves as, I don't know, I guess so much a part of like any given group that you could pick, to the point where you start seeing other people only in terms of the group that they're in and like whatever community they're in or perspective they have. I think it's in a lot of ways a spiritual death, because then you stop seeing yourself as, well, I mean, really, it's.
No, you're actually on it, And the thing is like, this isn't new. I think we have new technology and all this stuff. But if the concept of dehumanizing people and war and genocide, that's not new.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I think Americans have gotten very comfortable.
Yeah. It's like so recent, it's unbelievable. But with the way Kevin Samuels shined light on people's reactions, it's like, we could actually do that stuff again. Like, if we're willing to live in that much of...
This is what I was just about to say.
Yeah.
I know people that read stuff about the Holocaust and genocides and wars of the past that didn't need to happen. And there was this, like, I don't know what the word is, but there was this, like, sentiment that was like, that could never be me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It was never true. We are just as human as they were 200 years ago. Mm-hmm. Anything they did back then, we could do today.
And even more likely to do.
See, and I think having that awareness of human nature is important, right? But anyone who comes and talks in this way is going to threaten your comfort, like you said.
1,000%.
And if we can go there too. It's just like, if you really think about it, like if you are religious, and let's say you, have read about Jesus in your Bible, they didn't like that man. There were people that wanted that man to die for. In the biblical context, speaking the truth, right? So, truth historically has always caused people to hate people. Like, it's not new. Now, you could argue and say, was Kevin speaking the truth? If you want to argue that, that's fine, right? But if he was true, if what he was saying was true, it doesn't surprise me that he got this reaction. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that at all. That's good. I think so. Let's kind of like move forward a little bit here. With all that being said, this is perfect because we're on the last little point here. So, so at this point, right, kind of having a overall viewpoint in our particular perspectives, right?
Yeah.
How would you say, or where would you say we go from here as it pertains to not only moving the conversation forward, but also in action and in engagement, progressing things? Because obviously there are going to be people that hop into this space now, right? Because he's no longer here, that aren't obviously going to be as bold, probably, in some of the things that he would address and how he would address them. So how do you guys see things moving forward and improving? We'll start with Alex.
Perfect. Well, it's stuff that I've already been doing since I've tapped into more of what K-Sam has been talking about. Also just me being a teacher, talking to young men, few generations younger than me, to just have something that you're, meant to do and give. Keep you. My phone's ringing. keep your life purposeful and meaningful. So it's like K-Sam talks about work all the time. And because he was working all the damn time, and I'm not at his level of working those many hours, but it's definitely inspiring to know that that's like what you're capable of doing, even at his age. That he's capable of doing that. So what's my excuse? I don't have an excuse. Like, I'm not handicapped and know nothing. Like, even people who are, quote unquote handicapped, they don't use it as an excuse to do what they are meant to do. They don't. They find a way, man. And they just still believe in themselves. They still have faith. So it's just, I'm already doing it right now, but it's just I got to keep. I got to keep in mind, to remember that it's gonna work out as long as we keep having a conversation and something gets done, afterwards. So that's why I'm gonna keep doing what I do, and of course, a K-Sam passing away, I'm gonna have to do now even more because he was so intense with it. I know I'm intense. I loved his intensity personally. So I know I'm gonna have to do even just more. Talking to the younger gen people, even older gen, because they have the golden nuggets too.
Sure.
So, but I'm about to go check my phone real quick, so I'll let you guys answer the rest of this.
Oh no, you good. Do your thing.
Appreciate you.
Yeah, for real.
So Spence, what would you say in terms of that question and just kind of the forward progression, taking what you took from him?
Yeah. No, I like that point about being willing to, there's certain YouTubers that I think are willing to be provocative because they know that there's a deeper purpose behind it. In terms of people legitimately are not going to pay attention. If you want to be nationally known in terms of what your message is, there kind of has to be something challenging about it, or super entertaining, or whatever grabs people's attention, basically. So for me, I think about music, that's I think a big reason to do music is to be able to have conversations where people maybe pay attention because they appreciate good music,
right.
With Nobody. But then also making sure at the same time, you have the willingness to then direct that attention the places where it's supposed to go.
Right.
When it inevitably ends up, I wouldn't say inevitably ends up on you. Who knows how much attention we'll ever get, or
right.
You don't know. We're gonna work, but I want to be a mirror to reflect that attention where it's beneficial for people, and that requires either being really good at something that people are attracted to you with, or being really provocative, being really good at being provocative. I don't know. That's my takeaway, I guess, as far as learning from
that's
it.
fire.
No, I agree. That's good. What would you say?
Yeah, what do you think?
I think that's a really good point. It's a multifaceted thing. So being good at something, right? Knowing how to redirect attention is really, amazing. That's something that K-Sam was good at.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
He wasn't good at everything. He
Yeah.
would direct you, therapy. You need to go listen to this music. You need to go talk to this person. You need to go to this channel. You need to read this book.
He didn't start off like that.
He would pay homage to, so he would redirect. So you talking about that is really important. And then you said, most importantly, you're going to work, right? I would say, for me, where do we go from here? If you peel back all the layers, the fundamental thing about K-Sam that impressed me and something that I relate to is his belief in humanity. The older you get, the more you understand the world's a dark place. There's a lot of people fighting demons, right?
Yeah.
There's, it is a dark place, right? But it's people who have the audacity to believe in people still, despite all that darkness, that can kind of, I don't know what the word is, but they can kind of pierce through all the noise and all the darkness, right? So that's something that I respected. And it's something that I personally, over the last however many years, even my whole life, I've always held on to my belief in humanity. I'm very aware of how dark the world is, though. I'm not naive, but I hold on to that. And so I think first and foremost, we need to inspire more people to believe in humanity despite the darkness. But also, like you said, it's going to be about the work. Like I know, like Alex said, that I'm going to have to do more than I have been doing. And whether that's me talking to more people, whether that's me starting a channel, I've definitely been talking to people behind the scenes. People know personally that's something that I do one-on-ones. But expanding that network, utilizing my resources, but just acting, continuing the work, So I think for me, I don't have a great answer right now, but I know that it's going to be about the work and the faith for sure.
I think that answer is a great answer.
Yeah.
I think not having the answer necessarily is a great place to be, because then that means if you're being proactive and you're trying to actively search for that, then you're doing something. And I think that's where it starts, right? I would ultimately just say that, like, where we go from here is it's a very broad question, very broad spectrum. There's a lot of different ways you could attack that. I think, and I'm grateful because I believe like a lot of what we're doing now is starting that, right? It's like, yeah, of course we make music and all that stuff, which is great, and we enjoy making that music, and we make that music for the sole purpose of starting these conversations.
I could tell.
People that listen to our music, sometimes it sounds good, so they just get caught in how it sounds. Then people that actually at certain points listen to like what we're actually saying, it's like, oh, they're talking about stuff, low key, and that's dope. That's what we want to do. But even outside of that space, it's like this is super important to us, because it's like this is also a way to really identify more directly identify a lot of these things that are going on in the world, a lot of these cultural things that are shifting things, because there's a lot of cultural things that are happening that aren't beneficial, right? As K-Sam was literally talking about. There's a lot of cultural things, though, that are positively shifting it, and it's like it's easy for the negative to outweigh the positive, especially when you're talking about culture in general, right? It's so easy for the negative to outweigh the positive. So I think one thing I always talk to Spence about is being a bridge. I think it's super important. I think purpose, because if you think about a bridge, right, a bridge gets walked on constantly, but it's sturdy, depending on who built it, right? So it's like, it's like building a sturdy bridge takes work, research.
Yeah.
What materials are the best for this situation? How high of a traffic am I looking to, undergo? All these different things you have to think about. Then you build the bridge. It takes time, sweat, work, disappointments. Everything doesn't go right. Then when you're done with the bridge, you stand back. You look at the bridge like, dope. But now what? Just because the bridge is done doesn't mean now will the bridge stand the test of time? Is it durable? How many people can walk on this bridge? Did all that work I put in serve the purpose?
And the maintenance too.
Right. And the maintenance, maintaining the bridge. So you see all that, like, that is where I think we go from here, right? Is like, let's get the schematics together, do the research, start building this bridge. As we're building this bridge, we're going to learn as we go. It's just going to happen, right? But it's not ever going to happen if we don't put the schematics into work and start getting the materials and putting the materials together. And a bridge is not built with one person. It's bigger than us. And I think that's where it starts. Is when it's bigger than you and there's something greater than you that you are working toward, then, and your intention is solely based on that, right? People being able to walk across this bridge so they can gain understanding, hopefully gain understanding in a way that is beneficial to everyone. But everyone's also not going to walk across your bridge.
It's true.
So you have to know that too. And I think that's kind of where we're at. It's like, I'm very unafraid of criticism or what people have to say. And I think that's hopefully going to benefit how we move these conversations forward and bringing people like you and Alex and other people that we've had these conversations with. It's important to build that together. Community is powerful, which is why it's under attack in a lot of ways.
You know, if you don't mind me adding on top of that really quick, you have to, so the status quo and like just things being how they are, they don't just stay the same for a reason. There's actually powerful people, financial interests that keep things how they are. It requires energy to maintain things.
Yeah.
If you want to change anything, you have to outwork those forces. You have to outdo them, out-strategize them. So I think, to add to your point, that's why it comes back down to the work. You have to outwork it. It's not going to just change, despite some people thinking that that's not how it works. You know, it does require energy. So I just wanted to add that on top. So I definitely agree with that.
Yeah, no, for real.
But yeah, man, we really appreciate y'all, man. This was a super fire conversation.
Yeah.
Alex in the background being that.
It was good.
But no, we really appreciate y'all, man, because like I said, this is something that it's been
About 6 months.
on us for a while. We've been talking about this for a while.
Well, actually, yeah, probably a year at this.
Yeah,
Since
this is one of
the
the
beginning,
this is one of the first things we talked about. Just didn't say anything about. So, we do appreciate you guys' perspectives. Overall, like I said, our goal, and it will continue to be that, it's a challenge, man. We got to challenge this stuff. We've already had some crazy comments when we posted. We just posted the I don't know if y'all remember when we posted like the little preview a while ago, a little clip. Like it was a long time ago at this point.
We just been talking about if I liked kids or not, basically.
Right. And we had some no offense, please don't take this personal, but there were some women that came at him on our comments, bro, for a comedic clip, bro.
Yeah. Yeah.
Crazy. But anyway, so we ready for the smoke. But anyway, I just wanted to say that. But
Cool.
But now we do appreciate y'all, man. Nobody knows. You already know what it is. We gonna keep grinding. Any last words, Spencer?
Yes, sir.
Any last words from all of y'all? Actually.
I mean, I appreciate y'all having us on and wanting to have this conversation. Obviously, we've been talking about it for a long time, so we appreciate it.
So don't be the last that y'all see of Alexander.
Also,
the
wanted to
Curious
say
George.
he's got a podcast.
Yes,
Alexander,
we
the
do. Shameless
shout
plug, bro. That's what we.
Yeah,
Come on, bro.
Stick your face
Shameless
in
plugs.
case-
He said,
Talk about it real quick.
Tune in, Alexander the Curious George podcast.
You're.
Yeah, whenever you have time, I dive into things like people, absolutely, people person, and just mindset. So, love talking about all that.
Yeah, man.
Thank you for having me, fellas.
Absolutely.
It's dope. I've watched 3 or 4 episodes at least, and I kept watching them. When I turned them on, you know what I'm saying? They're just very genuine. So,
Maybe we can put
yeah.
their
a clip
like
of-
Instagram
or,
handles and stuff.
yeah, do that.
In here for y'all, so y'all can follow these individuals. We'll actually put them on there too.
Yeah, do that. Yeah, because I was gonna say, it's easy too fresh, but it's not spelled regular.
Right.
So yeah, I'm not like Alex B, but I do post some things on my Instagram stories. People know. I do like to have these type of conversations on my actual Instagram story.
Yeah.
So put
We'll
that
definitely
tag on
be plugging
there.
y'all to them because they're very valuable people to us. So, and we'll definitely be having more people that will hopefully be challenging in these conversations. So, if y'all got recommendations for people we should reach out to, have these conversations with, we're going to cover a plethora of topics. Like, this is just one of the many things we'll cover. So, if you want us to talk about Will Smith slapping Chris Rock, jeez Louise, but stuff like that. But yeah.
Yeah. We ain't nobody.
We ain't no.
All right.
All right,
Love you
y'all.
guys.
All right, folks.